Now, before I end out of here, I just want to give a little shout out to a person who is a new commentator in the community who goes by the username of Scarlet Otaku. I'm going to go ahead and just put this out there now. She's the new Danny of the community. Not by a sense of her being the new sex joke of the commentary community, but by being a good commentator. So if you haven't seen Scarlet Otaku's bullshit, and yes, this is a shameless plug. No, she did not ask me to do this. I just felt like doing it myself because, hey, I think she needs the views. I think she's a good commentator. You guys should go check her out. Her account's going to be in the description down below. There's going to be a link there.
That's how it started for me. I just show up in the community, put a one-shot commentary on Lyric Shooter, and all of a sudden, someone higher up in the CC food chain gives me a shout-out, encouraging everyone to check out my channel. There's a reason why I call TOG Professor my CC dad. Mid to late 2011 was a welcoming time for me. I was new, everyone was watching my channel, and I was excitedly meeting the people I watched on a daily basis. Fun fact, I was inspired to do these commentaries by a former commentator known as Rashutsu, whom by close friends is known as Danny, hence why TOG called me the new Danny of the community. She was just getting out the door of the CC and on to Let's Plays with some of her friends in the Spiffy Needle Geeks. But shortly after the welcoming gestures, I was approached by several people that seemed to have issues with me. I won't say their names in this video because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, as a few of them have approached me before and apologized for their actions and since moved on, so to avoid any drama, they'll remain nameless. I remember being added into a Skype call with a few of these people, and for a while things were fine until I was left alone with this one individual who said that I need to rethink my content and my status in the community if I ever want to be a good commentator. When I asked them what I could do to improve and what it was that I was doing wrong, they simply replied with, "I'm not gonna tell you. You're like, what, a high school senior? You can figure it out for yourself." I was left in silence. Who was this person to tell me who I was in the community? Do I know them? Not really, since evidently I don't even remember their name, nor had I seen their content before meeting them. I sat in silence, quietly sobbing at what I was perceiving as an attack on my person. And then they simply said, "I can tell you have a lot to think about with this, so I'll leave you to it." And I just sat there, crying. I didn't understand what it was that this person was going on about or why it should matter. I was having fun in the community and enjoying the people around me, so who were they to tell me I had to figure shit out on my own to improve? This was the start to my 2012, the CC of 2012 that so many people before Dylan Thomas liked to glorify. And what I'm going to tell you are stories that are 100% true. I've told these stories before, both in public and in private, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to those who have heard these stories before or who were there during that time. And at the end of this, all I want is for you to take what I say with a grain of salt, and if you wish to still glorify those times of 2012 CC, I can't and won't stop you. But I encourage you to hear this, as it may alter your perspective on the matter. After that, it seemed that for every video that came out on my channel, I was being critiqued not on my work, but on my person. For those who remember a channel who went around spewing nonsense that tore people down just for making commentaries, the reason I was being critiqued was because I was overrated. Now, I can understand that there can be an oversaturation of topics and people that get talked about within a bunch of communities. Hell, even in the news, they call it fatigue because some broadcasts are covered to the point that people just don't care anymore. It happens, and I wholeheartedly accept that. What I won't accept is the reason I was overrated. The reason is going to sound completely ludicrous nowadays because we're at a point where we know better. But regardless, it's important to know what mindset was had during that time. My gender. Yes, that one thing that everyone rolled their eyes over at Midnight Phantom for was the very reason as to why back in the days of 2012 I was overrated. From that point onward, I was bombarded with personal criticisms from people that really had no idea who I was as a person and decided to judge me by their merits on what is acceptable for the community and what was not. Tiny Tits Tim, they called me, due to the character that I used as an avatar. Disappointing, they said. No real reason whatsoever as to why. Shitty artist, they said, as they looked through my old art on my DeviantArt page. Fake, they cried, because I dared to put effort into my inflections of my voice when recording my work. All of this started because I was female. Take a moment to really let that sink in on how ridiculous that is. This makes no sense to us now because, yeah, it's fucking stupid. But to put this into perspective here, there were hardly any female commentators at the time of 2012. The most influential and recognized commentator had just left the CC, and leaving very few that had as much of an audience as she did. But wait, you said that there were other female commentators. Weren't they criticized for their gender as well? Surprisingly, no. And I have no idea why a target was specifically placed on my back for this one thing that apparently was such a big deal. This continued throughout the year, and by the time that something much darker had occurred in the CC, very few people actually believed what I was going through to be real. I won't go into specifics as to what happened. Plus, there's a video on my channel that explains what it was precisely. But that part of my time in the CC was actually believed to be blown out of proportion by the very same detractors that had such a large voice in the audience of the community. God knows where those mindsets came from, but very few actually bothered looking into it and believing what was going on, and very few afterwards even apologized for their assumptions. So if being a girl in the CC was bad, being creative in the CC was bad, being friends with some of the most influential commentators at that time was bad, what wasn't bad? Judgment? Spite? Pretty much those behaviors were acceptable. I left for those reasons. I came back in 2014 because it was getting better. People were starting to attack each other less and influenced entertainment for the community. So I jumped back in with another one-shot. I think I'm probably one of the more underrated commentators now, and I could be completely wrong depending on who you ask. But really, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm judged less nowadays for my person and more for my content. Honestly, despite the shit show that was my Categories commentary, I'd rather have that kind of critique than the bile I received when I first started. 2017 was not a good year for the community, no doubt about that. But compared to where we were before and where we are now, it's better than it could have been. We've grown in this community and our arguments against each other are less vitriolic and more, I want to say creative, but at the same time we had shit like Avatar/ImageGate, which really, come on guys. I'm not saying that because of the changes we've made from then to now are enough for us to be considered a good community. But for those who wish for the days where people like that, who influence the audience to be so pessimistic and hateful towards everyone, who did practically anything, my response is this. I never, ever want to return to that time period. Instead, I'd rather move forward with what we have and be grateful that we're growing and we're learning.